right, it looks like I have at least one person here, which is good enough for me to start. Today I want to talk about the Gorillaz. I don't like the Gorillaz. I'm just going to frame it that way. Um, I think Damon Albarn um, has a lot of ego. I think when I watch an interview with him discussing this project, you can see the ego, and it's off-putting. So I just want to preface it, that way. I'm not a fan. I don't really follow the work. I listened to a lot of Blur when I was, I don't know, in the 90s, right? Or like even a bit later because we always get the UK kind of imports later. But Blur was very popular in the late 90s, and then he started this project with the Gorillaz. And the thing that kind of interests me about, let's just put this on, about the Gorillaz is that they're a virtual band. And they've even talked about in the AP interview, we'll look at, I don't think we'll watch it, but we'll look at my notes. He's even talked about how the Gorillaz can go on even after the death of the members, right? And it's kind of this interesting idea of a virtual animated band that can go on even after death, and in some way therefore achieving immortality, which is kind of the goal of a lot of occultists. They're really obsessed with immortality. And I think even with all of this exploration into Hinduism and Buddhism, it still hasn't provided much enlightenment for Damon, because he still comes across as someone who has a lot of ego and hasn't really learned anything, right? When we talk about Mount Analog, okay, I did a video about this a long time ago. Mount Analog is a story about how they go try to find the holy mountain, right? But within it, in order to gain any kind of prosperity on the holy mountain, you must suffer ego death. So I don't, think that any of the Hindu or the Buddhist stuff that Damon Albarn may or may not be into helped him. It didn't seem to help him experience any kind of ego death. Okay, so they came out with a new project called, I believe it's just called The Mountain. This is Sanskrit for mountain. And of course, we know there are holy or sacred mountains all throughout the world, and in literature, it is a metaphor, a very apt metaphor. If you're looking for spiritual enlightenment, you probably have to climb a metaphorical mountain in order to do so in some, spiritual traditions. So I also want to start really with this AP interview that I suffered through. And there's something really cringe about older men who dress this way. Like, I'm sorry, like, it doesn't look hip. It looks like really undignified, and like you're just this eternal stoner. And in his SNL performance, let's just bring that up because I didn't really add that. So hold on. Let me find it. He's wearing this really strange outfit. So let's just similar. They're in this sort of military fatigue gear. And of course, there's all this Gorillaz lore that I'm not interested in or really very privy to. But he's certainly done a great job in creating a fan base for this stuff. There are people that are very, very devoted fans that are into the lore that he can't even keep track of himself. And so, let's see. And I guess the spirit of the Gorillaz really is just a collaborative effort of musicians that he wants to work with. So here he is in all of his glory, right, with his military fatigues, and his red beret. I'm reading like very communist vibes here. If anyone who's a musician in my crowd knows which particular setup this is, I'd love to know. I was trying to look it up, but I couldn't figure it out. Uh, yeah, I get a very strange and like egotistical impression of Damon. So if we go back to this presentation that I made, basically their project is about a holy mountain, and it seems to be set in India. And the reason why it's set in India is because his collaborator Jamie Hewlett and Damon, according to this AP interview, experienced the mortality of their loved ones. Both of their fathers died, I think within days of each other, which is very strange. And then both, I found this kind of interesting, both feel as if the Christian version of the afterlife is depressing. And I think it's because of the duality, right? There's a heaven and there's a hell. It's not just some stupid void that you drop into that you can either reincarnate or not. And I find that interesting that he's so put off by the Christian version of the afterlife. I think it's a comforting idea that it's not just a void. I don't want to reincarnate either. Neither are comfortable with the concept of hell. So, like many other occultists before them, they seek wisdom from India. And it's also, I guess, because Jamie Hewlett's, maybe he's married to an Indian woman. The conversation starts off where they're talking about how he had to go to India, I think for his mother-in-law or his father-in-law was very sick. I think it was the mother-in-law. And so a lot of this comes from, Buddhism and Hindu belief systems, this idea of this holy mountain. Even though there are holy mountains really within almost any vein of spirituality, it is a very ubiquitous metaphor. And it makes sense I think it makes a lot of sense, right? If you want spiritual growth, it might feel like climbing up a mountain sometimes. So I think this is kind of interesting. They were not comfortable with the Christian idea of death, so they went to India, like so many other occultists before them, to seek wisdom. And so Jamie describes it as this thing where the family members of people in India, according to Jamie Hewlett, I don't have any other source information. I know a handful of Indian people, and I've never been to India. So, this is what his experience was while he was visiting the hospital, while his mother-in-law, I believe, was very sick. Okay, so these two are faced with mortality. They don't like the Christian version, so they go seek other versions. And so he says that they're sad that their family member is dying, right, in this Indian tradition, but they're also celebrating because the family member is starting again, right, reincarnating. So here's describing eternal return. And both have said that they wish that the Gorillaz would continue even after their deaths. No ego death for them, right? So even after having absorbed all of this Indian philosophy, it only made them want to live forever, which I find like heavily ironic. Let's get real into some of the stuff that we see as far as what they're wearing and their tattoos. Here we see Jamie wearing a Jolly Roger ring, the skull and crossbones, and I'm not saying anything about it, okay? I'll just let you think about their fashion choices. Why would they be dressed in military fatigue? Why are they all of a sudden obsessed with Indian spirituality? You tell me, okay? But this is just some stuff that I caught. And then, of course, Damon has this strange goat head or ram's head tattoo under what it looks like to be, it sort of looks like what the Islam symbol for the moon might be. I don't know. Make of it what you will. The thing that I do know about, though, The stuff that I do know about is his this symbol, which is straight from John Dee. And I don't know if you know this, but Damon has made an entire opera. Let's see, out of based off of John Dee. He made this opera here, which you can. I've shared this. You can click on it yourself if you're not familiar with who John Dee is. He was an Elizabethan era occultist who is someone that gets studied often if you're someone like me who's just sort of interested in the occult and what different people believe, or if you're like a true practicing occultist. You're very interested in John Dee. And so I find the use of this symbol, which he has tattooed on his hand, it looks like he got the mountain in Sanskrit on top of his hand after this performance, which I believe is from 2023. Here you can see John Dee's sigil. So I think, Damon is very interested in the occult. He also admits there's a strange part of this interview where he starts talking about how the animation is a project that reaches children, and he goes into what it might be like if you were like a 5-year-old discovering the Gorillaz, and I just got very weird vibes from that. All of this stuff is a vibe. It's just a vibe check. Right. He says also, like, they were very proud of how collaborative this project is, and 24 people worked on it, featuring 6 different languages, which, I think it's promoting this kind of idea of globalism and unity and like a good leftist, right? Their music is inclusive. It, has many different people that are interested in it. So both admit also that neither can keep track of Gorillaz lore and that their fans do it for them. And imagine being so devoted to a fake band by these weirdos who can't even remember what they did or said, because I assume they're on a lot of drugs. The ego on both kills me. They claim they were the first band to have a devoted online community. But of course, it's all inclusive, and isn't that so great? And multiculturalism is the best. But I do, not to be super negative, there's a positive part of this interview where Hewlett's discussion of AI and art. And I thought it was nice that he said it was important to have something created by people. So let's look at that really quick in the video of this interview. What did it say? Like 1307. The mountain. Let's and then I'll get and see if anyone's here paying attention to me ramble about this band that's yeah, are they relevant? I don't know. 13
necessary for this album because of the subject matter to go back to traditional forms of animation and storytelling, but also, with the rise of AI art and AI this and AI that, it's just, I find it all a bit sickening, really, and I've already had enough of it. So it was necessary to show how wonderful something can look when it's made by people, and that's what we attempted to do. Hopefully it will be liked. I really enjoyed doing it. Yeah.
So I found that to be like a more positive part of this interview, and they really do kind of border on cringe and likable sometimes at some points. So not to focus entirely on the negative aspects. GM Carr is asking me, is that the band of the guy who wrote Blur's Woohoo song? Yes, Damon Albarn was the lead singer of Blur. And he created the Gorillaz in 1998, I want to say. I prefer Blur, but, I think he's always been, I think I once dated a guy who was a sound engineer, And we were talking about rock stars, and he said that the lead singers were always the worst part of the band because they need the most attention. So, make of that what you will concerning Damon. So, yeah, Damon Albarn also is obsessed with John Dee, or was around 2011, enough for him to have made an opera about John Dee and use his sigil in his work. So, I thought this was kind of an interesting link. Can I open it? Come on, man. What is this? Oh my goodness. Well, I have it open in another tab. So I was looking into just, when I prepare for these episodes, there's lots of things that I do, but like, you just do a bunch of searches and you try to figure out, if any blatant occult references exist. And this is pretty blatant. So it says seal of God star logo meaning. A lot of people keep asking me about it, so I did a little research, and this is from a Tumblr, I think, like fan page. Um, so the star is known as I'm not going to say that right. I'll just call it a sigil, right? Or the seal of God, a symbol of the living God, as called by John Dee. Um, Sigillum Dei Imath is how I would say that, was a later or a late Middle Ages magician diagram composed of two circles, a pentagram, and three heptagons, and is labeled with the name of God and his angels, right? Because John Dee thought that he could communicate with heavenly beings or angels, or maybe even just demons. Who knows at this point? But John Dee believed that he could communicate with them and built scrying mirrors for this purpose. It was an amulet with the magical function that, according to one of the oldest sources, allowed the initiated magician to have power over all creatures except archangels, but usually only reserved for those who can achieve the blessed vision of God and angels. While the sigil does appear in older texts of which John Dee was probably familiar, he was not happy with them and ultimately gained guidance from the angels to construct his version, right? He really believed he was talking to non-human entities. Dee inscribed the sigil on circular wax tablets. He would commune via a medium and a shoe stone with the angels, and the tablets were used in preparing the ritual space for such communication. One tablet was placed upon a table and the shoe stone upon the tablet. Four other tablets were placed beneath the legs of the table. According to Damon, he became a bit obsessed with Dee after he took part in the creation of Dr. Dee, an English opera that explores Dee's life and work. He's been wearing a necklace with the symbol, and he used it on stage for his solo tour. Okay, so that's a little bit of background concerning Damon Albarn and his use of the seal of God sigil here. Okay, let's go back to our mind map. All right. So, I think he's very interested in alternative forms of spirituality. Let's just say it in a neutral way, if possible. So again, the new album, the new project is about a holy mountain. There are tons of different holy mountains all throughout time and space. And I said this earlier, but this text is Sanskrit for mountain. And I did once do an analysis of Mount Analog, which is Demal's take on the Holy Mountain, which I believe is a stand-in for Mount Meru, which is known in Hindu and Buddhism as the center of the cosmic universe. So I think all of these things inspired them. And then when I found out that they were inspired by loved ones' mortality, it made even more sense. Okay. So let's get into their fandom a bit. get into this in case you don't know. The official storyline of the virtual band members of Gorillaz, as established by the music videos, The Rise of the Ogre autobiography, interviews with the characters, and real life band members in multiple forms of media, interactive games on the official Gorillaz website, and social media posts. So, the story of Gorillaz begins on the 15th of August, 1997. Murdoch Nichols, who I didn't even know was like, according to lore, like a Satanist. Like you can tell in the music video, he's like, and you can even tell here, right? He has an upside down cross on, right? So Murdoch Nichols was a Satanist hoodlum and bass player with a very abusive childhood who dreamt about becoming a famous musician. He had been part of various bands over the years, the most notable of them being Murdoch's Burning Sensations. But none of them were really even remotely successful, largely due to his terrible singing voice. This time, however, during a crime spree with a gang of criminals, Murdoch decided to ram raid a store known as Uncle Norn's Organ Emporium to procure synthesizer equipment to establish a chart-topping musical group. Murdoch drove his Vauxhall Astra through the building's window, crashing directly into the face of Stuart Pott, a mentally deficient keyboard enthusiast and part-time employee at the Emporium. Why is an emporium for organ harvesting or whatever it is have anything to do with music? This is all very weird. So this person, enthusiast and part-time, and none of this is real, right? This is all virtual animated stuff. At the Emporium, permanently damaging or fracturing his left eye and putting him into a catatonic state. Murdoch was sentenced to 30,000 hours of community service plus 10 hours every week of caring for the injured Stu Pott. Not long after, Murdoch again injured Stewart in a car accident in Nottingham's Tesco car park when attempting a 360 spin to impress some woman. During the initial rotation, he was thrown through the windshield and landed face first on a curb. This permanently damaged Stu Pott's right eye, but awakened him from his coma. Impressed by Stu Pott's new look, Murdoch then recruited the newly recovered, albeit mentally defective Stu Pott as the keyboardist and vocalist for his group, redubbing him 2D. So I didn't know any of this lore, okay, before looking into stuff for the episode today. So it's interesting that the entire band is basically created by a Satanist. Okay. We're not going to read the rest of this. If you want to, it's linked in the mind map, which I have shared with you guys. So it's funny to me that they can't even keep track of their own lore, and that their fans kind of do it for them. Let's get into this music video. So the music video is obviously inspired by the animated Jungle Book, but the Jungle Book, if you didn't know, is also a short story by Kipling. And Kipling wrote a different story about a holy mountain, and it has many references to Hindu deities in it. And I've also linked that here. So if this is something you want to read, I don't think I'm going to read this one to you. I might read the part of the A.E. Waite book that I found that I think is pertinent to this live stream. So you can read this at some point if you'd like. But, you know, the obsession with Indian spirituality is not new to people from the UK. Anyway, and they were often, there's a lot of exchange there. So the music video, there are some parts of the music video I found really strange, and we're going to talk about it. But of course let's look at the, of course it sort of looks like this. It's reminiscent of the Jungle Book animated feature made by Disney. And it also has a lot of, you know, Hindu symbolism in it. We see Ravana at some point. The Naga is a big part of the music video. It starts off with Noodle. This I found very, very, very strange. Okay. So there's this character, it's the only female character, as far as I know, that's part of the band. And she transforms in this music video. It's either her as a child or she's a boy. I don't, I don't, I don't really know. But if you've, this is some like stupid stuff that I know. If you've ever seen this anime, Ranma One Half, it's about how one of them turns into a panda and the other one turns into a girl or something like this when they get wet. And so that was like reminiscent of that for me. So the transformation of Noodle. Noodle begins the animation looking like the boy in the Jungle Book and then transforms to a female after being plunged into the water, which she's plunged into the water after she's riding the Naga, which is basically the Indian version of a dragon. Okay. And we'll look at that page because I find that really interesting. So she hops on this Naga, or he, I'm really not sure, and gets dumped into water, and then boom, becomes this female version. And perhaps this is an allusion to the divine androgyne, or perhaps it's a reference to childhood and a transformation into an adult. And like I said, she rides the Naga to the water and it drops her in, and that's where she transforms. So this I thought was actually really interesting. So this is the Naga, right? This is basically the Hindu version of a dragon. So the Naga, and this is a big part of the music video, is a mythical serpent-like creature which holds a significant place in Buddhism, particularly in Asian Buddhist cultures. The serpent deity is not just a mythological entity, but a symbol with profound spiritual significance. The Naga's presence in Buddhist traditions represents various aspects of human existence, the natural world, and the path to enlightenment, right? And so the music video, after she does this transformation and steals some clothes from a guy, because all of a sudden she feels embarrassed about being nude because she's transformed into a female with breasts. They all meet up in the jungle and they decide to go on a pilgrimage to the mountain. And so I think this idea that the Naga is present is important, and it indicates that they're on a path towards enlightenment. So this blog does this, blah, blah, blah. So the symbolism of the Naga. 1, cosmic guardians. Nagas are often depicted as divine beings residing in the depths of oceans, rivers, or underground realms, right? And so they are close to this strange holy mountain in which they will pass through the moon cave, which is where the veil is very thin, and then they go to the other side. And it's interesting that, we're including a river, or it's a body of water and an underground, not necessarily underground, but a hidden realm, right? So they're considered protectors of sacred places and treasures, guarding the Dharma or Buddhist teachings, and offering their blessings to those who seek refuge in the Dharma. Transformation and rebirth. The Naga's ability to shed its skin is a powerful symbol of transformation and renewal. This, I don't know why I can't read today. This process signifies the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, a fundamental concept of Buddhist philosophy, right? The never-ending cycle of reincarnation. A fundamental concept. Water and life, right? So transformation. She rides the Naga to the water and becomes transformed into an adult female. Water and life. Nagas are closely associated with water, which is essential for all life forms. Water symbolizes purity and cleansing of impurities, reflecting the purification of the mind on the path to enlightenment. And they are also the guardian of treasures. In many Buddhist stories, Nagas are protectors of hidden treasures and relics. emphasizing the value of spiritual treasures and the need to safeguard the teachings of Buddhism for future generations. Cultural relevance. Asian Buddhist cultures. Nagas are prominent figures in various Asian Buddhist cultures, including Tibetan Buddhism, Thai Buddhism, and Cambodian Buddhism. They are revered and celebrated in rituals, festivals, and art. And in a lot of their temples, I can say in Vietnam, which there was also a lot of Buddhist activity there. I went to some ruins that were made by ancient Indian people. But what I wanted to say is some of their temples are on top of a higher place, and there are a lot of steps. And on either side of the steps, you'll see this long dragon, right? A naga. Temple decorations. Many Buddhist temples in Asia feature elaborate naga sculptures and imagery. These depictions serve as a reminder of the naga's protective presence and the importance of respecting the sacred place. Spiritual significance. Guardians of the Dharma. Nagas are often seen as protectors of the Dharma. This concept extends beyond physical treasures to the precious teachings of Buddhism. They represent the idea that the wisdom and teachings of the Buddha should be preserved and protected. Rebirth and transformation, environmental stewardship, lessons in impermanence. So it's interesting that they want to do this spiritual project that somewhat hinges on these ideas coming from Buddhism or Hinduism, and yet they still say that they want to continue this project indefinitely, even after they're dead. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really sound like they've learned much of anything, and they aren't even very good occultists. All right. So let's go back to the music video. We talked about Noodle's transformation and how it reminds me of Ranma 1/2, and how she rides the dragon in this form, the Naga, and jumps off into some water and becomes this version. I find that strange. So color and other symbolism. Well, just actually, I think this is just mostly like color symbolism here. We'll just change it while I'm here. Anyway, so 2D, which is the lead singer, aka Damon Albarn, is wearing yellow, which to me indicates he's already been somewhat initiated. You can kind of see it here. He also has, they're not beads, but I think they're it's like supposed to be a prayer necklace. Oh my God, the AI job is pestering me to do it. Sorry, I just got distracted. Okay, so he's wearing this necklace. Murdoch, which is the Satanist, which I described earlier, I guess does not have an H in it, is wearing a Satan shirt or a demon shirt. And he is also the last to plunge into the void, probably because he's the most connected to the material realm. Noodle is wearing red, white, and blue. Red meaning sacrifice, white purity, blue clarity. Remember, this is my own color theory. It does not, it just came from my brain. So you don't have to agree with it. But she also steals the clothes from a nude man at the beginning of the animation. And Russell is wearing orange, and I do not have any, and I have no thoughts on orange. But as they travel through the jungle, they see scenes like this. There's also a snake oil salesman. So this scene actually reminds me of the A.E. White, or Wait, this should be Wait, I think, book that I found recently called Devil Worship in France, or the Question of Lucifer. So let's go ahead and click over there. Let me see if there's anybody here. What's going on? I got 5 people here. Hello, GM Car. So let me check in on your chats. You've seen a lot of practitioners say Enochian magic is the strongest, but the wife swapping saga between Dee and Kelly makes me question what sort of entities they were really talking to. I think they were talking to demons. It's like if Hatsune Miku was human. You saw the Ranma 1/2 anime or manga? Really weird stuff. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is A.E. Waite of Tarot Card fame, text I talked about earlier, and this is called Devil Worship in France. But he goes over what page are we on? 51. But he goes over all sorts of things. This is a record of things seen and heard in the secret societies according to the evidence of initiates by Arthur Edward Waite. And this is 1896. So I thought it was kind of interesting, and there was overlap, and it was like a bit of a funny synchronicity for me to see that image of this sort of mummified looking like guru who's clearly, trapped there. And so here's the connection to this text. It's where it's described that they're going into these different temples and seeing different things. So this is the 7 temples and a Sabbath in the Sheol. It was in the month of October 1880 that, in the course of his enterprise, Dr. Batal reached Calcutta. Freemasonry, he informs us, invariably affects the horrible, and as he invests Calcutta with the somber hues of living death and universal putrefaction, it naturally follows that the Indian city is one of the 4 great directing centers of universal Freemasonry. Okay, this is an old text, so please keep that in mind. Everywhere the pious doctor discovered the hand of Lucifer, everywhere he beheld the consequences of superstition and Satanism, cataclysms, floods, tornadoes, typhoons, plagues, cholera, representing the normal state of health and habit, and the consequences of universal persuasion in favor of the fiend, a corpse, he testifies, is met with at every step. The smoke of burning widows ascends to heaven. The plain of Dapa, in immediate contiguity to the city, is a vast charnel house, where innumerable multitudes of dead bodies are flung naked to the vultures. The English Mason will at once recognize, of all places in the world, Calcutta is most suited to be a Mecca of the fraternity and the capital of English India. The Kadosh of the Scottish Rite, the sublime chosen master of the Royal Arch, the commander of the white and black eagle of the Rite of Herodom, the perfectly initiated Grand Inspector of the Scottish Philosophical Rite, the elect brother of Jonanite Rite of Zinzendorf, and the brother of the Red Cross of Swedenborg, 1,000 of other dignitaries of 1,000 illuminations gather in the grand Masonic temple, and as the doctor gravely tells us, are employed in cursing I don't even know how to say it. Let's just say Catholicism, okay? I feel like that's difficult. By a special conjunction of the planets, the doctor, on reaching headquarters, had immediate intelligence that the great Phileas Walder had himself recently arrived on a secret mission from Charleston. There also he made acquaintance with another luminary of devildom by the name of Hobbes, who presided at the important proceedings which resulted in the damnation of Carbuccia. Brother Hobbes, possessed of much experience in Lucifer, gave many assurances concerning the incessant apparitions of the master of evil to all worthy persons. Now the doctor, by virtue of his miserum patent, I don't know what that is, was as much a priest forever according to the Melchizedek of Masonry as if he had been born without father or mother, but at the moment he had not received the perfect initiation of the Palladium. Technically before, I think Palladium is what Wade is referring to the cult as, this satanic global cult that he's talking about in this book. Technically, therefore, he had no right to participate in the supreme mysteries. However, it is needless to say that he had arrived in the nick of time to be present at a ceremony which takes place only once in 10 years, provided that he was willing to undergo the trifle of a preliminary ordeal. On that same evening, a select company of initiates proceeded in hired carriages through the desolation of Dapa under the convoy of initiated coachmen for the operation of a great satanic solemnity. At an easy distance from the city is the shoal of the native Indians, and hard by the latter place there is a mountain 500 feet high and 2,000 long, on the summit of which are 7 temples, communicating with one another by subterranean passages in the rock. The total absence of pagodas make it evident that these temples are devoted to the worship of Satan. They form a gigantic triangle superimposed on the vast plateau, at the base of which the party descended from their conveyances and were met by a native with an accommodating knowledge of French. Upon exchanging the sign of Lucifer, he conducted them to a hole in the rock, which gave upon a narrow passage guarded by a line of Sikhs with drawn swords, prepared to massacre anybody, and leading to the vestibule of the first temple, which was filled with a miscellaneous concourse of adepts, from officers and tea merchants, even to tanners and dentists. In the first temple, which was provided with the inevitable statue of Baphomet, but was withal bare and meagerly illuminated, the doctor was destined to pass through his promised ordeal, for which he was stripped to the skin, placed in the center of the assembly, and at a given signal, 1,000 old venomous cobras were produced from holes in the wall and encouraged to fold him in their embraces. So also in the music video, Murdoch, the satanic member of the group, seems to get caught by a snake, the snake that kind of looks like it's from the Jungle Book, and it's implied that the two have some kind of intercourse with each other. And the next time you see Murdoch in the music video, the snake, there's a cut to the snake with hearts in its eyes. It's very weird. While the music of the flute playing fakirs alone intervened to prevent his instant death. He passed through this trying to encounter with a valor which amazed him, persisted in prolonging the ceremony, and otherwise proved himself a man of such extraordinary mettle that he earned universal respect and received the most flattering testimonials, even from Phileas Walder. So let's get to the mummified part, right? So it's describing how he's going down into this terrifying area, and basically they're in a tunnel and they see, a mummified, I think that's not the right here it is, right? So they go into another temple, right? The fourth temple was a Rosicrucian sanctuary having an open sepulchre from which blue flames continually emanated. There was a platform in the midst of the temple designed for the accommodation of more Indian vestals, one of whom it was proposed should evaporate into thin air, after which a fakir would be transformed before the whole company into a living mummy and be interred for a space of 3 years, right? So that's kind of just part of this book. Take it with a grain of salt. It's very old and, might not be accurate. But when I saw this image in the music video, it gave me that kind of synchronicity because I had been reading that recently. What's going on? Pinocchio's helicopter. I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. These are not my most popular episodes, but I kind of just do them for fun. It's fun for me to do this. So here's the plot summary of the music video. It opens on a book with the Holy Mountain Sanskrit on it, or sorry, just mountain, right? It's not necessarily a holy mountain, even though Damon now has it tattooed on its hand. And it is reminiscent of old Disney films. Please excuse any kind of typos here because this does not have a spell check. We see Noodle, right, the female member of the band, but she looks like Mowgli, the boy from the Jungle Book. Okay. She swings through the trees and wakes up a naga, which she rides on until it tosses her in the water and she transforms into an adult. She spots a man who has hung his clothes out as he is in the river. She steals the clothes. She runs into 2D, who is wearing yellow and a yellow prayer necklace meant to ward off evil. They meet up with their other bandmates and embark on a journey to the mountain as a curtain unfurls with the word mountain on it. Murdoch hooks up with a snake, showing how demonic he is. 2D tries to buy false salvation, snake oil from a fake guru, with a moth, and seems surprised that the guru won't accept the moth as payment. They continue on their journey to the moon cave, which is decorated in any ancient hieroglyph that you can imagine. Yeah, it's like they really slapped together all of the different hieroglyphs, ancient hieroglyphs that you can think of. So, hold on. The mountain. I don't want to get in trouble with copyright stuff, but I do want to show you what I'm talking about. And I did not have the energy to take screenshots today. So here's the cave that they're going to enter into, the moon cave. This is where all the hieroglyphs are. Maybe if I put it on mute, I won't get in trouble. So they decide that they're going to enter into this moon cave. This is Damon Albarn standing. And as you can see, it's any ancient, just like any good occultist, right? We're going to mash together anything and everything that we can think of that's ever depicted any form of spirituality. Right? So you can see he's surrounded by all of these different petroglyphs and things like this from all sorts of different cultures. They come alive and, they go on this walk together. I'll just play this part on mute. And then, of course, this is like the rapping part of the song. I'm sure that bird is symbolic of something, but I don't know what it is. There's a butterfly. You've got pyramids on hands, eyeballs, dolphins, which always are strange to me, aliens. For some reason, one of them's wearing Crocs. So, right, let's just smash together every esoteric and strange image. I find it interesting that he's standing on a UFO and this guy's shirt says the dove, which is usually a symbol of peace. So I wonder what the connection is there. Yeah, living mummies are definitely a thing in Buddhism for sure. Yes, it is. Which I guess Wade is calling Luciferianism, but it was just not Christian. And it's interesting because earlier on in the stream, I am discussing how Damon Albarn and his partner in crime, Jamie Hewlett, are very uncomfortable with the Christian idea of the afterlife. And it makes you wonder why. Yeah, being a living mummy would suck. Totally. What's going on, Terry? So this is some very strange imagery, I think, right? We have this man with a dove t-shirt on top of a UFO with a disembodied head in it. That's weird. We see an image of destruction. This looks like a yin-yang. All sorts of infinity symbols, even a little demon here. Whatever the heck is going on here. I guess that's spirits on top of the other guy's head. He really is just a disembodied head. Aliens. Right? Because what they're doing in the moon cave is they're walking into a place that the veil is very thin. Right? They've gone to this holy mountain. They've entered the moon cave. All the hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, whatever they are, wake up. and they go on a little walk to the center of the moon cave. Yeah, I don't have the energy to break down this entire video. It's quite layered. But then, and Noodle seems to be the most connected. In fact, it seems like this journey is her idea. So then they meet this sort of ghoulish looking figure on a boat where they're going to go into the other realm on this boat with this very ghoulish looking figure. And it's sort of like a Hindu version of the river Styx or something. I find this to be a little creepy considering current news. The spiral people think is a pedophile symbol. So here they are. We see a bunch of deities because they've crossed over now into a sort of in-between realm. And I know that in Tibetan Buddhism, when you die, you're greeted with a bunch of different demonic looking figures so that you know that you're dead. So now they're on this body of water. And right before she jumps into the body of water, she says, "I love you." And they all jump into the void. So let's go back to the plot summary, right? So they continue. The moon cave is where the veil is the most thin, and it is here that they will cross to the other side with a guide that looks like a zombie. They appear to be on an Indian version of the river Styx. And so before mouthing "I love you," Noodle is the first to take the plunge into the void, which is the water, which is death. And the rest of the band follows, even though Murdoch is hesitant. Remember, he's the Satanist of the band, who has also created the band, according to the Gorillaz lore that I did not know until earlier today. Because I'm not like a huge fan of this project. And when I watched that interview with Damon Albarn, it made me even less of a fan. And they all jump into the water and the credits roll. So we'll just go back and we'll watch the rest of it on silent, and hopefully I don't get in trouble here. So right. I mean, I think it is actually really impressive that this is all hand drawn. Like, I think that's the most positive thing I can come up with. It looks like somebody tried to explain this music video. I guess I'm late to this. Maybe my explanation's good. I don't know. I think it's very straightforward if you know anything about this kind of stuff. I don't think it's that difficult of a music video to dissect at all. They go on a pilgrimage to a holy mountain, enter the moon cave. The veil becomes thin. This sort of demonic entity takes them on a boat ride to the void. Okay? It's about death. And they explain that it's about death in their interview, and how this album and this project is a reaction to both of their fathers, meaning Damon Albarn and his partner, Jamie Hewlett, both of their fathers dying within like 10 days of each other, which I find pretty wild, but God is kind of like that sometimes. So here they are jumping into the void. And then, of course, the most satanic member of the group is hesitant. It'll cut back up to the top here in a second. Right. So he's hesitant. He's the most connected. He's the Satanist, right? And he's most connected to the material realm, and he is not excited about going into the void. Yikes. And he's like, I guess I'll go into the void. I'd rather not be dealing with this demon. Yeah, and that's basically the end of the music video right here. All right, so they all go into the void together, and that's it. That's that. So I'd be interesting to see. I think this is the only real music video they've made for this project. And I'm sure it took them a very long time because it was all hand drawn. And so I'm interested to see, where it goes, because even though I don't like their music, I think the artwork is fairly compelling. Um, anyway, that was the live stream of the Gorillaz and the Holy Mountain and their depiction of the Holy Mountain. A little bit about Damon and his obsession with John D. sometime in 2011. Uh, if you just got here, here's Damon's like scary goat head tattoo. And Jamie's wearing this Jolly Roger ring. Damon also has the John D sigil tattooed here. And I believe this is the same, this is the Sanskrit for mountain. And of course, we have his prayer beads. He just can't decide, right? Also, he loves the number 13, which if you watch that SNL performance and his weird fatigues and army gear, you can see him. Hold on. You can see him. Let me just put that back on real quick. You can see him wearing this outfit. Hold on. There it is. I see a black triangle also. Black and white peace sign. Not sure what this skull. I know like the number 13, maybe it's like on his sleeve and we can't see it from this angle. The other kind of cool thing that's positive, because I don't want to be negative all the time, is that this was an amazing, collaborative effort. And, I think that's pretty cool. I don't have to like the effort, right, to see that it's collaborative and that it included a lot of people. Maybe it was the other one where he did like Clint Eastwood, their old song, which is basically about AI taking over. It's really creepy. Where I There it is. There it is. I knew I wasn't hallucinating. There's the 13. Okay. So I think I did it. I think I covered everything I was gonna cover today. Uh look, since people are talking about different holy mountains, but let me see what you guys are saying, because this is fun. Uh I don't like this. I don't like Gorillaz. Gorillaz in the Mountain Mist. You're not digging it? Yep, they showed the all-seeing eye. Any kind of esoteric symbolism you can think of is basically in that scene. Yes, it always has to include aliens, doesn't it? Why don't you like it when there's aliens involved? I want to know your thoughts on aliens. I'm just not that interested in it. I've never been, even though I watch the X-Files. But my favorite X-Files episodes were always those standalone ones. You know what I'm saying? Uh, Jamie says, I think when you die and you stop being alive, call me crazy. Terry says that she used to travel in her dreams to the land of the dead, and you'd always have to pass through water coming in and out. Oh, that's very interesting. I don't think I've ever been there, but I will tell you the most terrifying dream I ever had if you're interested. And I don't think it would be terrifying unless you were in the dream, because when I describe it, it doesn't sound that terrifying. But I fell asleep and I was at this crossroads in my life, and I was thinking a lot about the future. It's kind of not stopped since this dream either. But basically, I was some kind of pool ball, like a on a pool table. I think I was the white ball, and I was smacked by a pool cue into a hole, and I was in the void, rushing with like intense speed, and then I woke up. And it terrified me. I don't know why, but it was just this feeling of kind of like existential dread that I had afterwards. GM Carr is asking Terry, what's it like? And she says it depends on who she visited. but usually it had the feeling of a nursing home or a facility like that. I wonder if you were in sort of a way station. Intriguing. Just a place with a lot of shiftless people milling about. Jamie postulates that the land of the dead is any downtown liberal run city in America. Maybe if it's hell, yeah. Philadelphia certainly started feeling like that. One of the reasons I left Philadelphia, which makes me so sad because I actually love Philly in a lot of ways, was, because I'm a working class person, I was taking public transit and people are just smoking cigarettes and blunts down there, which, Philadelphia's always been like an asshole, but like I'd never seen it that bad. And I lived there in the early 2000s, it was bad then, but I don't remember anybody smoking on public transit when I lived there the first time. Uh, the Holy Mountain is very ancient. It is the dwelling of the gods. Yes, the Holy Mountain is everywhere in almost every form of spirituality that you can think of. And it often has to do with, right, this is where the gods live. This is the center of the cosmic universe. Jamie says that he believes it's real, and ancient religions that departed from the truth kept the notion because of how it was in Eden before God took off after Adam and Eve ate the fruit. Interesting. I'll just put my mind map. And again, if you want to explore the links, I have this below. You can check out all the stuff that I did and crammed into this. That's super interesting. I don't know who you love, but I hope it's me. I hope it's me. Oh, that's what she's mouthing. Okay. All right. In the book of Revelation, it comes out of heaven into the earth. With the heavenly temple where Jesus ascended after his resurrection. Somebody was asking about Tracy Twyman the other day, and she had a lot of thoughts about the Holy Mountain, which is why she read Dumont's Mount Analog. And if you do want to see my analysis of Mount Analog, I have put it up and you can watch it. I tied it to the film Bliss at the time, which I'm not sure if any of you saw. But I saw a lot of parallels there. And I love these kind of conversations. I love conversations about religion and like comparing, different religions. You meant to write, you love my esoteric streams. Okay, well, that's great. You know what? I don't know why. These are just like fun for me. It is fun for me to make these silly mind maps and like make all these connections, and it's like a fun thing, and it's like a little bit of escapism in these trying times. Oh, okay. You guys are going to link up. You're not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. What do you guys think of the idea that aliens are just kind of like demonic beings? Do you guys think aliens are real, or are they just like demons? Have you guys ever read that Jacques Vallée book about how they've appeared differently to different people? Different. Why can't I think of how to spell his name? Vallée. Oh. Hold on, let me try to find the book, because if you haven't read this book, it's so good and I highly recommend it. Dang it, this is the French version of his Wikipedia page. This guy. Where's the book? I think it's Passport to let's see. Passport to Magonia. So if you've never read this book and you're kind of interested in this stuff, I find this book to be like a super interesting read. He kind of goes over the different folklore of these different entities appearing to people throughout time and space. Super interesting stuff, and very well written, very compelling. I think my copy is in a box somewhere. Um, aliens are kind of boring and lizard people too. It's okay to love me. Well, I love all of you for showing up. Um, yeah, what do you think of my terrifying existential crisis dream? You're going to interpret it for me? Yeah, it was terrifying. I've had a lot of strange dreams. Like I'm a very vivid dreamer. Um, Lots of things have come to me in my dreams. And I've come to believe that dreams are like these strange lies. I can expand on that some other juncture. Uh, anyway, Jamie says, I'll marry a man that will fulfill my life and calling. Do you know where he's at? Do you know where he's at? Oh, I don't know. Um, it's very sad I shouldn't have to leave my home because people are so degenerate. Yeah, I felt very unsafe. Uh, and I've been all over the world, I've been to places of extreme poverty and I still it was after COVID because what happened during COVID in Philadelphia, everything did shut down except for the subways. And where do the derelicts like to hang out? The subway. And what's funny about Philly is that we only have two trains, one that goes north and south, and the other one that goes east and west. And it's old. It's like a really old system. And it's never been like nice, but it's also, I'd never seen such chaos like I did after 2020 down there. It was really messed up, everything that I saw. You could go off for hours on my dream. All right, let's look at different holy mountains. Let's look at different. I believe that the mountain that they're talking about in the Gorillaz music video is probably Mount Meru, which is the mountain that features a lot in Buddhism and Hinduism and is the center of the cosmic universe. Jamie thinks it's real. That's interesting because that's the premise of Mount Analog, where a group of people go to find the holy mountain. Where is the list of holy mountains that I found? I think it's in my mind map. Anyway. Sacred mountains. Here we go. Let's look at the list of sacred mountains because there are so many. And I find this reoccurring metaphor to be really interesting. I thought there was like a list. I'm gonna get, heat for this, but AI made a really nice list for me when I typed this in. I think I typed in sacred mountains throughout literature and cosmology. But as you can see, there's like a huge list. This is a reoccurring image. It's a very powerful one. Let me see if I can find my, hold on a second, because AI did a pretty good job listing all the different ones. And I thought it was on this Wikipedia thing, but I'm wrong. Blah, blah, blah. Just looking through my history right here. Where did it go? Earlier I had, okay, where is it? Where is it? Oh, not Ranma 1/2. Here it is. So AI actually does a pretty decent job of telling us all the different holy mountains that exist, right? We have this one in Tibet. We have what was mentioned earlier, Mount Olympus, Mount Sinai, Mount Zion, Mount Fuji. And so I feel like, though, because I have experience in Japan, that's more of a Shinto thing, animism and their belief that in Shinto, everything has a spirit, some of them being big, some of them being small. And Mount Fuji is a big spirit, a big kami. Mount Purgatory, Mount Ararat, can't say that. Mount Meru, which is what I think the Gorillaz are referencing. Mount Carmel, or Carmel, I guess. Mount Ida, Mount Moria, right? So there's a lot of these stories of these holy mountains. Oh, and then you have Mount Shasta, the creepiest area of California, right? Anyway, so I think that's kind of interesting. Aliens or demons for sure. Let's go back to this on our alien discussion. Yes, exactly. Terry says she thinks aliens are interdimensional beings, not necessarily demons, but likely to be most of the time. Interesting. Yeah, I like these conversations. People got very effing antisocial after COVID-19. Yeah, I think that was part of the process. The alienation was, I think they really do want us to be used to being alienated from each other. Because I think they want us to live in this virtual reality, kind of like the Matrix. I don't know. Who knows? It's all speculation. Uh, it's sad that things changed so much, right? The entire world that we knew is basically gone. And in my escapist sensibilities, I just sort of pretend like it didn't happen, and I just kind of live my life like I always would. And I think having some reflection about almost going to China, I'm kind of relieved in a way, because there were a lot of trepidations I had going there. I know it's a fascist place. That's why I hate all these people that are America hating assholes, because there's real fascism in the world, and it's not this, okay? Because I can leave my house without my phone right now, walk down the street and pay for something in cash, right? I don't have to carry my phone everywhere I go. I think what China is operating is a form of what I would call techno-fascism. So I have my trepidations, and also being someone who's a bit of like a Japanophile, I like Japanese culture. I've never been to China, okay? So I can't make these value judgments. Like, I don't know what it's like, and I don't want to speak about it. But I really, in my heart of hearts, I really just want to be back in Japan with Japanese people, because I really relate to them. There's a lot of things that I, gel with. The quiet, the solitude, the sense of safety, the respect they have for each other and other people. And also what I love about the Japanese is that you can go for a very long time without seeing a Japanese person. If they're a friend of yours, you can show up back in their life and they'll say sashibori, right? Long time no see. And that's kind of how I operate. Yeah, Mount Shasta. We have to do like a whole episode on Mount Shasta and the freaking cult that lives in Mount Shasta. It really was like some kind of reset. Mount Hood does some trippy stuff sometimes. The clouds. I love mountains. I have some great pictures of Mount Fuji. Mount Hermon is where the Book of Enoch said the fallen angels came down. Really? I didn't know that. And I've only watched one episode. So if you didn't see this earlier in the stream, I discussed how Ranma 1/2 reminded me of the transformation of the character Noodle in the animation, who starts off looking like a child, if not a boy, and then transforms into the adult human female version of herself after she gets dipped into the water by the Naga. So I don't know, we'll just watch this. If you're not familiar with this anime.
はしゃぐ恋は池の恋やっぱぱやっぱぱい
One of them gets dipped into the water and turns into a panda, and I think the other one turns into a girl. It's been like 20 years since I've seen this. Um, I've never watched Inuyasha. Not my cup of tea. Yeah, I don't I so the more I thought about China and the possibility of living there, the more I sort of didn't really want it in my heart of hearts. And I think this whole experience of me not being able to get in um, was what God wanted. I think God protects me a lot. And I don't think I would have been like truly happy there because also the thing about Japan is I had a sense of freedom there as well. And and the Chinese tourists that I'd meet weren't the best representations of China. I don't know. I just love Japan. I love its vibe. It's like where I want to like retire eventually, if possible. But I feel like I'm running out of time. Um, you're gonna go to Japan. Let's all go together. Uh, China. Yeah. Do you have to? Maybe I'll just visit you guys. You have a Muji. Listen, if I can just be at a place with like a Muji and a Daiso, I might be happy. I don't know. I have like I have like a chunk. I have to figure something out by the fall. But right now I have a chunk of time. I have some savings. I think I'm just gonna do some traveling, you know? Mount Shasta. So the cult on Mount Shasta, they need a whole video devoted to them. Is the cult of Saint Germain. Um, and what I love about that cult is their religious imagery. I love this stuff. I think I have a picture they made of like Jesus. They believe in the sort of lavender flame, right? And they do these crazy pageants every year. I did like a whole dive into them. Like I do this sometimes. And I never share it with you guys because I'm like, are they even interested in the weird? I assume you're interested in the same weird crap if you've ended up here. But I got to do a whole show on Mount Shasta and its strange Saint Germain cult, which seems to own and run the entire town. Do they go around and catch magical monsters and make them fight like Pokemon? I will say I was living there when they had the augmented reality of the Pokemon where you could go to different places and you really would see like it happened once near the train station I lived at and I just saw like a cluster of people like tapping like furiously on their phones to catch those virtual Pokemon. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna come out there for a while. I don't know. Maybe you could hook me up with some painting gigs, make some extra. See, maybe I should just move to Portland. I've been there. It's enough like Philly. Similar vibe. Uh you're gonna paint the door and come home. Anyway, guys, yeah, let me see. Saint Germain, Jesus. I love it. I think this cult has, to me, like my favorite imagery of any cult I've ever seen. And they're like a very long running cult. They've been out there for a long time. I believe. Let's look it up. I don't want to speak out of pocket here. Saint Germain cult. uh oh, 1930s. The IM, right? Centers on the teachings of the ascended master Saint Germain. So here's the Saint Germain cult, which I believe now they live. Yeah, it all comes from like theosophy. It all comes from the same place. Why am I putting an E at the end of it? Just wild. They believe in like the violet flame and all sorts of stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Um, you have trains with antisocial people on them. That sounds great. Actually, I'll tell you that with a Florida teaching cert, I can get a job without doing anything if I move to Oregon. It's like one of the states that's like the easiest to get a teaching job in. Yeah. So I guess that's my breakdown, the esoteric breakdown of the Gorillaz and their holy mountain, and how even let's just return to this really quickly. Even with their spiritual journey, it still seems like they didn't really learn that much. And they still want to continue this project after they're dead. So even after absorbing all of this Indian philosophy, it only made them want to live forever. Ironic. So I'm going to leave you with that, guys. I really am. I really am this time. Uh, your education system's one of the worst in the country. And that's what makes it so difficult to teach in the United States, because I don't agree with a lot of the educators I meet. And a lot of the educators I meet are not the most intelligent people, and that makes me very sad. And this is my chosen profession. Like, I mean, obviously, like, even me not teaching right now, right? I'm still doing this kind of stuff on YouTube. I love the dissemination of information. I think it's empowering and it's very important. So it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that everybody got caught up in these identity politics, that true empowerment of students is not really a thing. It's like a lot of lip service, but they don't really care about it because they'll just push these kids. What's really happening is a failure of for these kids, because they just push them through even if they haven't gained the skills. And that's why we have a growing population of incredibly illiterate people. So uh it is. It's very hard because, they come up with all these ridiculous ideas, like, and it is supposed to be merit. And yes, people do have different skill levels, but we shouldn't dumb down our standards into obliteration just because school is hard for some people. And we also took out tracking. Someone mentioned that in a stream like maybe a year or two ago, like they don't allow the students that have more intellectual ability to be in AP classes anymore. In fact, Eli Steele made a pretty good documentary about it, I guess, a couple of years ago, about what was happening, I think, in California, maybe San Francisco, where they were taking out the tracking, they were removing the advanced courses. It's just wrong, you know? It's just wrong. You have to have standards. And I believe in grades too. Okay. And I know not every student is cut out to do like analysis of literature. All right. I wouldn't ask someone who's, I don't know, I'm thinking of a different discipline, who's in a more sort of scientific discipline, to write a breakdown of Beowulf and expect it to be like good. I don't know. Everybody has different abilities. Everybody has different things they could bring to the table. I truly believe this. And um, it's a shame. It's a shame what's happening in education. We are just failing them. We're failing them left, right, and center. So, guys, yeah, I think that's going to do it for me and my breakdown. I hope you enjoyed my little mind map. There's a link below, and I think sometimes it does, especially, but what's happened is there is no discipline now, because they overcorrected. Okay, there's no grades, there's no discipline, there's no merit, right? They erased all of these so-called like oppressive things, and now it's like a complete and total mess, because guess what? You do have to have standards. and discipline. And you can't let these kids just do whatever the heck they want, because then they think they can do whatever the heck they want. So yeah. Yeah, I was looking into Portland actually, and you guys have some of the most affordable rents in this country. Uh, you got to see, and that's passing, right? And we don't expect everybody, to be a writer. And I wouldn't want to do any kind of math right now at all, you know? So, and I think that's like a Montessori belief too, where like everybody has different talents and abilities. That's like a school system I'd like to try to maybe like look into getting into. Um, yeah, the rent is so cheap. It's crazy. I don't know any of the neighborhoods though. I'm not going to ask. Anyway, I really am leaving this time. I promise. It's just so much fun to chat with you guys. And I do want to thank everybody for being here. And you might not know it, but like just you tuning in helps make me feel like this is a worthwhile endeavor. And there are a lot of times that I don't want to do this anymore at all. And I want to erase the entire thing. But then I remember that like there's a handful of people that want to hear what I have to say. And that is really nice. So I will catch you on the flip side. Take care, everybody. And I hope you're having an awesome time doing whatever you're doing today and whatever is in your future for the rest of the day. Take care.